Okay, guys. In our next example, we're going to take a look at solving an equation that has a negative in front of the x term, and we'll see how to handle that. Okay, so let's say I have an equation that looks like this. 5 minus 2x equals negative 11, right? So the difference is that the term, the x term, has a minus in front of it. So what are we going to do with that? Okay, so first of all, I want you to understand that anytime you are subtracting, it's really the same thing as adding a negative. So that's going to make it a little bit easier to tackle, I think. So we are putting plus minus. It's the same thing as a minus. And so the x term here, this guy right here, should be by itself. So we do not want anything else in the same part of the equation, right? So it's on the left-hand side, there is a 5. We got to get rid of it. So how do we do that? Well, think of 5 as a plus 5, okay? So it's like a positive 5. So we want to undo it. So instead of adding 5, we can subtract 5. And remember, when we do that, we have to do it on both sides. So we also have to subtract on the right-hand side. So now we're going to wind up with negative 2x on the left-hand side. And on the other side, we get negative 11 minus 5. So how do we do that? Now you can do it in your head, but you got to be very careful with these negatives. So when you have a negative 11 and then you are subtracting 5. So imagine like this somewhere here is negative 11 and you are subtracting 5. So you just jump in 5 to the left, you're going to wind up with negative 16. Now, if you don't believe me, then you can just use a little calculator. So if you want to use a calculator, you just have to remember that when you start with a minus, it's like really a negative. So there is this little button that looks like a small minus sign. That's the one you want. So it's like negative 11 minus 5, and that's negative 16. Okay, so anyway, so that's negative 16. What's next? Okay, so we do have a term that has x on the left-hand side, but we still haven't solved for x because we want just the x and nothing else. So remember that the default operation between a number and a variable is multiplication. So there is times, right? And so to undo times, you gotta do division. So we're gonna divide both sides by negative 2. So on this side, the negative 2 is gonna cancel. On the other side, we get 16 and divided by 2. Both of them are negative. So these two negatives basically cancel out. So two negatives become a positive. So 16 divided by 2, that's just an 8. So I think that this is the final answer, x equals 8. So how do I know that that's true? Okay, so I need to plug that back in here, right, for x. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our check. So we do have to check every time. All right. So I'm gonna plug it. And remember, when you plug it, we have to put the plug thing in parentheses. Otherwise, it looks like 28, which is not. It's 2 times 8, right? So this is really multiplication. So we've got 5 subtract 2 times 8, that's 16. Is that negative 11? Yes or no? Well, 5 minus 16. So remember, imagine that you have a 5 and a 16. Well, what happens is you basically start with the 5 and go 16 to the left. Where are you going to wind up? Are you going to wind up with negative 11? Yes, you do. So that's negative 11 and also negative 11 on the other side. Check. Again, if you don't believe me, you can just put 5 minus 16 on a calculator. It tells you that that's negative 11. So as long as you have the same number on both sides, that means that you got the right answer. That's it.